What if I told you that the guy you think has forgotten about you is probably awake right now thinking about you? Not probably, almost certainly. And he would never in a million years tell you that. Not because he doesn't feel it, but because he doesn't even fully understand what he's feeling himself. Men are complicated creatures. We like to pretend they're simple. We like to say things like, oh, men are easy, they either like you or they don't. But that's not the full story. That's the surface level version of men. And tonight we're going underneath the surface, way underneath. Because what men do at night when they miss someone, it tells you everything about how they actually feel, and almost nothing about what they'll actually say out loud. Let me ask you something before we go any further. Have you ever sent a text and then immediately regretted it? You know the one. It's late. You're lying in bed. The room is quiet. Your phone is in your hand. And you just start typing. You don't even plan it. Your fingers just go. And then you send it. And then you stare at the ceiling for 45 minutes waiting for a reply. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And here's the thing. Men do the same thing. They just handle what happens next very differently than you do. And that difference right there is what we're going to unpack tonight, fully, honestly, without sugarcoating a single thing. But before we get into it, if this kind of real, honest, no fluff content is something you've been looking for, I need you to do one thing right now. Go to the comments and type the word night right now. Just that one word, night. It helps us know this content is actually reaching the people who need it. And make sure you subscribe, because what's coming later in this video is the part most women never get to hear. And I don't want you to miss it. Now let's get into it. Let's talk about what men actually do at night when they miss you. And I mean really miss you. Not the casual, she was fun kind of missing. I mean the deep, quiet, can't sleep, staring at the ceiling kind of missing. Because that exists in men too, more than most women ever realize. And understanding it might completely change the way you read his behavior. The first thing men do at night when they miss you is something so simple, it almost sounds made up. They scroll, not mindlessly, intentionally. They go to your profile. They look at your photos, not the new ones necessarily. Sometimes the old ones, the ones from before things got complicated, or the ones from when things were really good between you two. They look at those photos and they sit with the feeling. They don't do anything about the feeling. They don't call, they don't text, they don't reach out. They just look and feel and miss. And then they put the phone down and try to fall asleep, and they can't. So they pick the phone back up and do it again. This is the loop men get stuck in at night. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's actually really quiet and kind of lonely. And it happens more than you think. Now, why don't they just reach out when they're in that loop? That's the question every woman asks. And the answer is not what most people tell you. People will say he's playing games. People will say he's not interested enough. People will say if he wanted to, he would. And look, sometimes that's true. But more often than not, what's actually happening is something much more human. He's afraid, not of you specifically. He's afraid of what reaching out means. He's afraid of being vulnerable. He's afraid of being rejected. He's afraid of looking desperate. He's afraid of reopening something that he doesn't know how to handle. Men are taught from a very young age to manage their emotions by not expressing them. And that lesson doesn't disappear when they meet someone they actually care about. If anything, it gets louder, because the more you care, the more you have to lose. And the more you have to lose, the more terrifying vulnerability becomes. So he sits there at night, missing you, scrolling through your pictures, and staying completely silent, because in his mind, staying silent feels safer than reaching out and getting hurt, even though staying silent is also hurting him. He just doesn't have the language for that yet. And that's not an excuse, that's just the reality of where a lot of men are emotionally. The second thing men do at night when they miss you is they replay conversations, not the fights. Not always anyway. Sometimes they replay the good stuff, the in-jokes, the specific way you said something one time that made him laugh, the conversation you had at 2 a.m. when neither of you could sleep and you talked about everything. Those conversations live in his head, And at night, when it's quiet and there's nothing to distract him, they come back loud and clear. And he misses them. He misses the ease of talking to you. He misses feeling understood. He misses feeling like there was someone in his corner. Men don't always know how to say, I feel lonely without you. So what they do instead is they replay the moments where they didn't feel lonely. And they sit with that. And they miss you without ever telling you they miss you. And here's what's fascinating about this. When men replay those conversations in their head, they're not just feeling nostalgic. They're also rewriting things. They're thinking about what they should have said, what they wish they had said, what they want to say now. Men process things slowly, much more slowly than women in a lot of cases. They come to emotional conclusions hours or days or sometimes weeks after the moment has passed. So while you're wondering why he didn't fight for you in the moment, he might be up at midnight 3 days later realizing that he should have. And that's a painful place to be for him and indirectly for you. Because you never get to see that version of him processing things. You just see the silence, and the silence can look a lot like not caring when actually it's the opposite. The third thing men do at night when they miss you is something very few people talk about. They start imagining scenarios. And I don't mean romantic fantasies, although sure, sometimes that too. I mean, they start thinking about what they would say if they saw you. They rehearse conversations in their head. They think about bumping into you somewhere and what that would look like. They imagine texting you and you responding warmly. They imagine calling you and the conversation going well. They play it out in detail, and then they talk themselves out of actually doing any of it, because the imagined version feels safe and perfect and within their control, and the real version feels uncertain and risky and outside of their control, so they stay in the imagined version, and they never take the step into reality, and you never know any of this is happening. This is one of the most frustrating things about men, not because they're bad people, but because so much of what they feel never makes it out of their own heads. It just lives there, in the imaginary space where they've already had the conversation 100 times, but never once in real life. And the tragedy is that sometimes those imagined conversations are exactly what you needed to hear, but you never get to hear them. Because he talked himself out of it at midnight when he was lying in the dark by himself. The fourth thing men do at night when they miss you is they listen to music. Now, this sounds ordinary. Everyone listens to music. But men who are missing someone don't just put on a playlist. They seek out specific songs. Songs that remind them of you. Songs that remind them of a specific moment. Or songs that just somehow capture what they're feeling, even though they couldn't put it into words themselves. Music becomes the language they can't speak out loud, and they'll listen to the same song on repeat for an hour and just feel it, let it wash over them. And that's as close as a lot of men get to actually processing their emotions. They outsource the feeling to the music, because the music can do what they can't. It can say the thing, it can name the feeling, and they can sit with it in private without having to be vulnerable in front of anyone. If you've ever had a man send you a song out of nowhere with no explanation, just a voice note or a link and nothing else, that was him trying to communicate something he didn't know how to say in words. That was him saying, here, this is what I'm feeling, I can't explain it, but maybe this song can. Pay attention to that. That's actually one of the most vulnerable things a man can do. Even though it looks casual, even though it seems like nothing, it's not nothing, it's everything. The fifth thing men do at night when they miss you is they check if you're online. They check your last scene. They check if you've posted a story. They notice the timestamp on your last message. They notice when you're active on social media. They're not stalking you. They're just trying to feel connected to you without actually connecting with you. Because connection feels safe when it's one-sided, when you don't know they're watching, when there's no risk of rejection. So they orbit you from a distance, quietly, and they feel something every time they see that you've posted something or been active. Not jealousy necessarily, just this pull, this reminder that you're still out there, still real, still the person they're thinking about. And sometimes they'll see that you're online and they'll start typing a message, and they'll get halfway through it, and then they'll delete it, and they'll put the phone down, and they'll pick it back up 5 minutes later and start typing again and delete it again. This is the back and forth that happens in private that you never get to see. That looks from the outside like silence and indifference, but from the inside is actually a whole internal battle they're fighting with themselves. The sixth thing men do at night when they miss you is they reach out through indirect channels. They don't text you directly, but they like an old photo of yours, or they watch your story first before anyone else, or they reply to your story with something vague like a simple emoji or a one-word response. And that's the signal. That's him waving at you from across the room without committing to walking over. That's him saying, hey, I'm still here, I still notice you, I just can't fully show up right now. And the reason he does it indirectly instead of directly is the same reason he hasn't texted you. Risk management. If he texts you directly and you don't respond warmly, he's exposed. But if he likes a photo and you don't respond, he can pretend it didn't mean anything. He has plausible deniability, even with himself. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this sounds exhausting, and you're right, it is exhausting for everyone involved, because you're sitting there wondering why he won't just say something, and he's sitting there wondering why he can't just say something, and neither of you is getting what you actually need, which is connection, real, honest, direct connection. But that connection requires someone to be brave enough to go first. And in a lot of cases, men are waiting for a signal that it's safe before they'll go first. And women are waiting for men to go first before they'll give the signal. And so everyone waits, and nothing happens, and both people miss each other in silence. The seventh thing men do at night when they miss you is they talk to someone about you. But not in the way women talk about the people they miss. Women will call their best friend and pour everything out. Men are much more subtle about it. They might mention you to a friend casually. Just drop your name into a conversation. Or say something like, yeah, I was thinking about this one time when, and then they'll tell a story about you. And the friend might not even realize what's happening. But he's doing it because saying your name out loud makes you feel more real, makes the missing feel more legitimate somehow. Like if he can mention you to another person, then the feeling must be real. It must be worth something. Men validate their emotions by externalizing them in very small ways like that. And it's one of the quieter signs that you're on his mind more than he lets on. The eighth thing men do at night when they miss you is they make plans they never follow through on. In their head, they decide they're going to reach out tomorrow. They're going to text you tomorrow. They're going to call. They're going to find a reason to see you. They map it out in the dark. They feel good about it. They feel resolved. And then morning comes and the daylight makes everything feel different. The courage that felt accessible at midnight feels much harder to locate at 9 in the morning. So they don't do it. They tell themselves tomorrow. And then tomorrow night comes and the missing comes back and they make the plan again. And the cycle continues. And you're on the other end of this completely unaware that any of it is happening. This is why men sometimes seem like they blow hot and cold. It's not because they don't know what they want, it's because what they want feels terrifying to actually go after. The night makes them brave, the day makes them cautious, and the gap between those two states is where so much gets lost. The ninth thing men do at night when they miss you is something I want to talk about carefully because it's real and it's raw. They feel it physically. Missing someone isn't just a thought, it's a sensation. It sits in the chest. It's a heaviness that comes and goes. And at night when they're still and there's nothing to do and nowhere to go and no task to complete and no distraction available, that physical feeling gets louder. And men who aren't practiced at sitting with feelings don't really know what to do with that. So they either numb it somehow or they just endure it. And sometimes they endure it for a long time, alone, without telling anyone, without telling you, without doing anything that might make it go away. They just lie there and feel it and wonder if you feel anything too. That question, do you feel anything too? That's the one that keeps men up at night more than anything else. Not the question of whether they should text you, not the question of what they'd say. the underlying, fundamental, terrifying question of whether they mean anything to you at all. And they won't ask you that question directly, because asking it means caring, and caring means risking, and risking means possibly losing. So they just lie there with the question unanswered, and the night stretches on. The 10th thing men do at night when they miss you is they think about what they did wrong. Whether the relationship ended, or whether things just got complicated, or whether there's just distance between you right now, men do a kind of unofficial audit at night. They go over moments. They identify the things they wish they'd done differently. They feel regret, sometimes a lot of it. And this regret isn't small, it's big and uncomfortable, and it sits with them. And this is actually important to understand because a lot of women read men's silence as not caring. But sometimes the silence comes from shame, from feeling like they messed up and they don't know how to come back from that. They don't know how to say, I know I got it wrong and I'm sorry, without it sounding hollow or insufficient. So they say nothing. And the silence that comes from shame can look exactly like indifference from the outside, but it is not indifference, it is the opposite. It is someone who cares so much that they're paralyzed by the weight of having let you down. Now, I want to stop here for a second because I've been telling you a lot about what men do, and I want to make sure we're being honest about all of it, because not every man who does these things is a man who's right for you. Not every man who misses you in private is a man who's capable of showing up for you publicly. And that distinction matters enormously. Missing someone is easy. Loving someone is hard. And sometimes men use the missing as a substitute for the actual work of building something real with someone. They let themselves feel the loss instead of doing something about it. And that says something about where they are in their own development, not as an indictment, just as information. Because here is what I want you to take away from everything I've shared tonight. Understanding why men behave the way they do at night is not the same as excusing behavior that doesn't serve you. You can understand him completely and still decide that his behavior isn't good enough for what you need. You can have compassion for his fear and still hold a standard for what you deserve. Both of those things can be true at the same time. And knowing that is one of the most powerful things you can carry into any relationship or any situation with a man. When a man misses you but stays silent, that silence is real. The missing is real. But it is also not your job to drag the feeling out of him. It is not your job to make it safe enough for him to show up. At some point, a man who truly wants to be in your life will find a way to show up, even imperfectly, even awkwardly, even with the wrong words. He'll try. And the ones who only ever miss you in private but never act on it in reality, those are the ones you have to be honest with yourself about, because you deserve someone who is brave enough to miss you out loud. Let's talk about what actually makes a man move from the private missing to the public showing up. Because this is the part that most content never gets to. Most content either tells you how to play games to make him chase you, or tells you that you just have to wait and see what happens. And both of those approaches miss something fundamental. What moves a man from silent missing to actual action is usually one of two things. It's either a shift in his internal state, or a shift in what he perceives the risk level to be. Let me explain both of those. A shift in his internal state means something changes in how he's feeling about himself. Maybe he goes through something difficult and it puts things in perspective. Maybe he does some reflection and realizes what he actually wants. Maybe he just reaches a point where the discomfort of staying silent becomes greater than the discomfort of reaching out. And when that happens, he moves. Not because you did anything different, but because something clicked internally. And this is the part that's both liberating and frustrating, because it means there's very little you can do to accelerate that process from the outside. You can't make him have his internal shift faster. You can't logic him into being ready. He has to get there himself. A shift in perceived risk level is a little different. This is where how you show up can actually make a difference. Not by chasing him, not by making yourself more available, but by being so genuinely fulfilled and interesting and alive in your own life that reaching out to you starts to feel like an opportunity rather than a risk. When a man sees that you're living well, that you're happy, that you're not sitting around waiting for him, something changes in how he processes the risk. Because now the question is no longer, will she reject me? And becomes, if I don't do something, am I going to lose this person to her own life? And that's a much more motivating question. It's not about playing games. It's not about pretending to be happy when you're not. It's about actually investing in your own life so that your presence becomes something that feels genuinely valuable to step toward. Now, here's something else I want to address, because I've been talking about men who miss you and stay silent. But I also want to talk about the version of this that's even more common, the man who does reach out, but at night, late, inconsistently, the hey you up text at 11 p.m., the random check-in that seems sweet but leads nowhere, the burst of attention followed by a long silence. This is a different pattern from the one we've been talking about, but it's related, and it's important to understand what's actually happening there. When a man reaches out at night inconsistently, it usually means one of a few things. He might genuinely miss you, but not be in a place to actually pursue something real. He misses the connection, but not enough, or not in the right way to do the work of building something. Or he might be reaching out when his defenses are down, late at night, when the loneliness or the missing gets loud enough to override the caution. And then morning comes and the caution comes back and the inconsistency continues. Or in some cases, and I want to be honest with you here because I think you deserve honesty, he might be reaching out because he likes having you available. Not because he wants to be with you, but because having your warmth accessible to him feels good in the moment. And recognizing that pattern early is one of the most important things you can do for yourself. Because there is a version of a man missing you that is the beginning of something real. And there is a version of a man missing you that is him holding space in your life for his own comfort, without any intention of actually stepping up. And from the outside, those two things can look almost identical. They both involve him thinking about you. Both involve him reaching out occasionally. Both involve him saying things that make you feel like maybe there's something there. But the difference is in the pattern over time. Is he moving toward you consistently? Is he creating real opportunities to connect in real life? Is he showing up when it's inconvenient for him? Is he doing things that cost him something? Those are the questions that separate the man who misses you and is working up the courage to do something about it from the man who misses you and wants the comfort of your attention without any of the responsibility. I want to go a little deeper now, because I think there's a conversation we need to have about what you do with all of this information. Because understanding men better is only useful if it actually changes something for you. If it just makes you more sympathetic to men who aren't showing up for you, then it's not actually helping you. It might even be hurting you. So let's talk about what to actually do with this. First, give yourself permission to feel the missing too, because I've been talking a lot about what he feels, but you feel things too. And sometimes in trying to understand his experience, women minimize their own. You're allowed to miss him. You're allowed to want more from him. You're allowed to be frustrated by the silence. Those feelings are not needy. They're human. And the fact that you feel them doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Second, stop trying to decode every small signal. The late night story view, the old photo like, the vague reply to your status. I know it's tempting to read these things like a code, to try to figure out what they mean and what you should do in response. But spending your mental energy on decoding signals is a trap. It keeps you focused on him instead of yourself. And it puts you in a reactive position instead of a proactive one. You deserve to be with someone whose intentions are clear enough that you don't have to decode anything. Third, if you want to reach out, reach out. I know that probably sounds too simple, but the double standard of waiting for him to move first while criticizing him for not moving first is something worth examining. If you miss him and you want to say something, not to chase him, not to convince him of anything, just because you're a person who knows what she wants and says so. That's actually really attractive. And it's far more powerful than waiting and wondering and going quietly out of your mind.